Welcome to the Ageless Pet Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Gabriella Barco
and Dr. Carmen Bausani.
We're bringing over 40 years of combined integrative veterinary experience to help pets achieve optimal health, reverse disease, and extend health span. We want to use this platform as a way of reaching pet parents and veterinarians as we explore the science behind disease, wellness, and longevity.
Our goal is to dive into current trends, research, and our experience treating patients to have genuine discussions about wellness, healthcare in the veterinary profession. We're also going to touch on trends in the human field because a lot of times stuff starts in the human area and trickles down to the pet community.
Yeah, so on today's episode, we're going to talk about a topic that affects many dogs and their owners alike, weight loss and strategies on how to help those pups shed those extra pounds.
Exactly. A follow-up to our first episode. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that.
Yeah, we kind of just talk a little bit about the research on longevity and how weight loss really impacts not only lifespan but health span. So this is really important, and we wanted to follow up with, we talk about weight loss, now we're going to help you lose that weight.
Yeah, let's get going on it.
Yeah, so why does weight loss matter?
Well, it's just like everything else, right? So just like in humans, excess weight in dogs can lead to a myriad of different health conditions. I was doing some research online just the other day, and numerous things come up, like, for example, osteoarthritis, cruciate ligament injury, strains, sprains, decreased mobility, luxating patellas, which is a knee problem, diabetes, other metabolic and endocrine disorders, respiratory disease, high blood pressure, kidney disease, chronic inflammation, and even certain cancers. And there's even more research going on to this on why it's so important. So those are just some of the diseases associated with being overweight, which I don't think is going to be shocking because those sound like a very similar list to humans, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost identical to the human problems that we have. And again, doing some research too, like what's the percent of dogs that are overweight? On our last episode, we were saying that it was over 50%, 56%. There are some conflicting research. Some of them I'm finding over 60, some close to 60. So I think it's safe to say that we're just going to say close to 60% of the pets in the United States are overweight.
Yeah, so basically more than half.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and that includes cats too.
Yeah, I think the cats were actually even higher.
Yeah, the cats were higher.
Yeah, I think they were higher on that. So that's not surprising, too, because they tend to live a more sedentary lifestyle. At least the indoor cats do.
Yeah.
Right. So, so those are the things that we need to look at, because if we make these dogs lose weight, we get them to lose weight, our friends to lose weight, they're going to be healthier. And that's what we're all about right now.
Yeah, so we need to know where to start to know where we're going, and we have to identify the problem. So before we can implement any weight loss strategies, you have to recognize whether your dog's overweight or obese. And we talked a little bit about this in episode 1 about how to assess the body condition score. And always a good idea to consult with, the veterinarian, because they can help you. And we've posted on our Instagram page and our show notes body condition score charts, so you can look at those too.
Yeah.
And then there's signs of being overweight or obese, and you might need some guidance on that too. But basically, a lack of visible waistline, decreased activity level, you can't feel their ribs easily, there's no abdominal tuck.
Right.
So
No
those are all
waist.
things, no waist.
Yes.
So those are all things to look at, and so we can identify. And then once it's been identified, we need to do a weight loss plan.
Yeah, so once we've done that, we just have to come up with a plan. And how do we do that? It's easier to prevent weight gain than to treat the obesity. So to successfully prevent obesity, we need to look at some of the risk factor assessments and how do we mitigate those risk factors. So there are multiple factors in dogs gaining weight. In a 2010 study, that was supposed to be you, isn't it? Sorry.
That's okay. You can talk about the study.
Okay.
You can be sciencey. You can nerd
I can
out.
be sciencey just once. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
you can nerd out on this study.
So 2010 study looking at environmental factors associated with obesity in dogs found that risk factors are multifactorial, as would be expected, right? These factors include income, owner age, frequency of snacks and treats, the amount of exercise that the dog gets, Those are some of the factors. And none of this, again, is new, right? This just goes exactly along the same lines as us humans. So if you look into literature at obesity in humans, it's exactly the same. And there tends to be a lack of awareness about healthy weight and obesity in dogs among a lower income bracket, also noted in this study.
Yeah. So again, it seems like it's common sense, but it really isn't. And people might not know that their dog's overweight. So that's where really kind of tracking not only their weight over time, because that can be a little misleading, but really feeling them for their body condition score, their muscle condition score, trying to make sure that we're looking at what we're feeding them, and that, like Dr. Bassoni said, treats and exercise.
Yeah, and I think there was a study too that I saw there was a survey study that showed that of dogs that were overweight, 84%, somewhere around 85% of dog owners didn't identify their dogs as being overweight, so they thought they were normal. So education is step one in knowing that they're overweight, right?
Yeah. So there's, we talked about some of those factors, genetics, that can impact weight loss. There's a variety of studies that some breeds of dogs are prone to obesity. Some of the studies have conflicting results, but the breeds commonly identified include Labrador Retrievers. They've also been shown to have slower metabolism. Golden Retrievers, Dachshunds, Shelties, Pugs, Beagles, and some others, including mixed breeds.
Right. I used to have 2 pugs, and boy, those things are food hounds, man. They just, you see a pug that has never met a food it didn't like.
Yeah.
So
I've also rarely met a lean pug, but I have.
I had 2. I had 2 lean pugs, just like I have a lean bulldog. It's possible. Mm-hmm. You just have to identify it, and it's good.
Yeah,
do it.
That's important. So what else can impact weight loss? I mean, there's so many things. How about if your dog is spayed or neutered?
Right, yeah. So those are big factors, right? So spaying or neutering, I think we were just talking, was it 3 times more likely to be overweight if they're spayed or neutered?
Yeah.
Especially in the first few years of life?
Yeah, the first 2 years it was more statistically significant, and that was a study that came out in 2013.
Right, so 3 times more likely if they're spayed or neutered. Age, obviously, is a big factor.
Yeah,
too.
Slow down the metabolic rate as we age.
Yeah, and then it's back to the spaying or neutering. I think I've always been told that dogs will lose up to 20% of their metabolic rate after being spayed or neutered. So 20% is a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that those of us who are aging and are losing some hormones like testosterone, for example, like neutered dogs, will attest to the fact that hormones are kind of important in weight loss.
Yeah.
And there's other things too, right? So medical problems, obviously can affect to that. Obviously feeding habits, overfeeding, treating, all those things. Treating means how much treats you're giving to your dog.
And what kind? Like what kind of food are they eating?
Exactly.
And what kind of treats are you giving?
Right. Yeah, so all those things are hugely important too. So we'll get into treats and quantity of treats and what a treat means to a dog compared to a human as far as calories. So we'll get into that in a little bit too.
Yeah, exercise. Exercise is really important. There was a 2016 study looking at how exercise and weight loss diet impacted weight loss and health. And you had 2 groups. You had a fitness and diet group, and then the diet only group. Dogs in the fitness and diet group participated in a training program. So they did underwater and land-based treadmill exercises 3 times a week. And then the dogs in the diet-only group had no change in their usual exercise routine. And all of the dogs were fed the same calorie-restricted diet and the amount necessary to achieve a weight loss rate of 1% to 2% per week, which is what we often recommend. Yep. And they did this for 12 weeks. They fed a commercial low-fat, high-protein kibble, so it wasn't anything, it was just a specific kibble for everybody.
Right. Yeah, so, again, 1% to 2% per week, that's a fair goal. I think we always aim to somewhere between 3% to 5% per month, so 1% to 2% per week sounds reasonable. So the loss, or their studies show that the mean weight loss was 13.9% and 12.9% for the fitness compared to the diet group. So the fitness and diet or the diet only group. So it's a 1% different. The fitness and diet group had 13% higher than baseline counts of fitness than the other dogs did. Body mass was also preserved in the fitness group.
So we're able to preserve lean muscle, which is so important when we're doing diet and exercise, which again, nothing surprising, but good to have the evidence to just back that up.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So there's a few interesting things to think about or look at this study, right? So 12 weeks resulted in a 1% increase. That's not a huge amount, right, of weight loss. So it speaks to, but there's two important factors here. One is that there was a difference.
Yep.
Maybe it's only 1%, but there was a difference. Mm-hmm. Also, it speaks to the fact that diet is the greatest factor in what you're doing. So one of your sayings is what?
You can't out-exercise a bad diet.
Exactly. I always say you can't lose weight if you're eating McDonald's 3 times a day. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. And I thought the other thing that was interesting was that last part of the study that's talked about maintaining muscle mass. Because as we always say, the weight on the scale isn't the full story.
Right. And as dogs age, they start to lose muscle.
Correct.
So we get sarcopenia. Favorite word. And we need to maintain that, right? So they can maintain their mobility, their overall health.
Right.
And this weight loss diet help them do that when they exercised in accordance to that.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that more and more in humans too, or we already know this in humans, right? That just calorie restriction results in weight loss, but it usually comes at a really great cost of muscle loss too. So unless you're doing weight training exercises, you're going to lose muscle mass, or I think people like to call it, what is it called now? I'm just going to say weight loss. I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it's going to be weight training or resistance training. That's the word, everyone's using nowadays. So you have to have some resistance training to maintain that weight loss, or you might lose 10 pounds, but 7 of it might be muscle. And if that happens, then what happens? Then your metabolic rate goes down. And if your metabolic rate goes down, then everything you eat is just going to make you gain weight because you don't have the muscle to burn it. So. I also heard something recently about the new weight loss drugs, the whatever it is, all those GLP-1 antagonists, that most of the weight loss is associated with muscle loss. So that's a vicious circle that's going to happen once you get off that drug, unless you're doing physical activity. So this is what the study says, is physical activity is super important in maintaining muscle mass. Even though the weight loss was only 1% difference in 12 weeks, I think the scale would be very different than what the body measurements would have been.
Yeah, definitely.
So
we know our dogs are overweight. What can we do to help them lose weight now? So there's a bunch of different factors and things that we can incorporate in helping them lose weight in a healthy way. And of course, this episode is not meant to be a guide, a specific guide. You always want to work with your veterinarian to make sure that your dog or cat is at their baseline body weight, body condition score, muscle condition score, and then a nice healthy rate of loss with routine monitoring.
Yeah. So that 1% per week or 3 to 5% per month, just focus on that, because excessive weight loss is going to sort of throw you into a yo-yo cycle that you don't want to do, and also makes it very difficult to maintain, either for humans or for dogs, because your dog's going to be begging all the time if it's freaking starving.
Oh, yeah. So and that's hard to deal with. And
yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So portion control, right? So I think I don't know. Do we want to start with portion control, or do we want to start with how to even figure out how many calories your dog should get?
Yeah, let's talk about calories and how many they should get. So there's a couple of formulas. I think a nice, easy formula that a lot of people will do is for the resting energy requirement. You take the body weight in kilograms, and you get kilograms by dividing weight in pounds by 2.2. So you have your body weight in kilograms, you multiply it by 30, and you add 70. And so that gives you an idea, but it's not etched in stone because it's just a formulation, right? It's just a calculation. It doesn't take into account a lot of things. And there's different factors you can multiply it by. Some people say, base this off of ideal body weight. Others say just start where you're at. So there is some variation in that, but that gives you an idea. And then in order to know how much you're feeding, you have to look at the food. So if you're doing whole fresh foods, using food scales, using measuring cups, measuring spoons, no kitchen mugs, and that way you know
no big
how
gulp
much.
Cups.
Yeah, no big gulp.
Real cups, people.
Yes. Which for me, it's always funny when I show a client what an actual cup is, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!"
I mean, how many people have like a coffee mug in there?
Oh yeah,
and maybe a big coffee mug too, not a regular coffee mug. So
yeah. So we need to know how many calories the food is, their treats are, how many calories they should be getting, and then that's where we start.
Right. Exactly. There are also charts out there that you can look up online. I have one right in front of me, and it says of a body weight, ideal body weight. That's an important thing. So ideal body weight, a 20-pound dog should consume 340 calories a day. A 40-pound dog, about 615. A 60-pound dog, about 890. There's more. I mean, it goes up. 80-pound dog, about 1,160. So, but just think about that. A 20-pound dog is only consuming 340 calories per day.
Yeah.
So when you look at those numbers, you're just like, wow, that's not very much. And for our human eyes, 340 calories is nothing. But on a 20-pound dog, that's a ton.
Right. Yeah. And some of these treats really pack a punch with their calories.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a list here of some really common treats, and we're not trying to fault anybody for a specific treat. But if you're going to feed a treat, you should know that they have calories too.
Yeah, if you just start at one of them, like these milk bones, which, oh my God, I think growing up, that's what we fed our dogs, were milk bones, which obviously I don't do it now. But a large milk bone is 115 calories. An extra large is 225. A medium biscuit is 40. So those are just some numbers and things to think about. I think the original greenies, I think a lot of people are using greenies, for their teeth. There's other ones. There's Oravet. There's a bunch of other things you can feed. But greenies have about 86 calories or kilocalories per treat. So just think about that when you're calculating calories, because as we said in our last episode, that treats should only make up a small percentage of the diet.
10%.
10%. So, if you have a 20-pound dog that's supposed to get 340 calories a day, that means only 34 calories per day are with
so
treats.
They can't have a greenie. They can't have a milk bone.
Nope.
We really have to keep in. And how many people feed one? Only one, right? Like nobody.
Oh my God, yeah. I think, and that we said this last time too, I think the great problem we have is the treats that we give our dogs.
Yeah.
So I see plenty of people who are feeding excellent diets and the dogs are overweight, and you're like, how? And then if you really dial down to it, it's the treats.
Well, any pet store, any online retailer, it's overwhelming on the amount of treats, right? Like they have so many varieties. There's more treats out there than there is foods.
Right.
So it's, everybody's like, oh my God, these look so good. They look so cute.
Right. Yeah. And food is love, right?
Absolutely.
So that's what happens. And we also have some other interesting fun tools in front of us.
Yeah.
One is it's an interesting statistic or a comparison. It's comparing foods or treats that you may give for your dog. So a 44-pound dog, what is the equivalent in donuts to a human? So a rawhide, a 6.7, rawhide treat is 644 calories, and that's equivalent to 10 donuts for your average size human. That's absurd. And then a hot dog, and they have a hot dog, which is really funny. A hot dog is equivalent to 3 donuts, again, for a 44-pound dog. But even a slice of bread, one slice of bread, 130 calories. Again, you don't think of that as very much, but that's equivalent to 2 donuts for an adult. So just think about it. If you think about things in donuts, your world will change, apparently.
I know. And also we have to look at, what does extra weight mean for your pet? So if you have a 15-pound Boston Terrier who's 3 pounds overweight, that's going to be the equivalent of a 150-pound human that's 30 pounds overweight.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah. So if you start thinking of things in that way, then you're really going to start looking at food differently.
Right. I remember I also do exotic animals, and there was something that came out that was 1 grape for a cockatiel is equivalent to over 300 grapes for a human.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, a cockatiel, what average weight is somewhere between usually 70 to 90 grams. I mean, it can get a little smaller, a little bigger, but that's average, 70 to 90 grams. And so grams, not kilograms, grams versus, a human that weighs 150 pounds. So start thinking about things, what we think about what it looks like then is a whole lot different than what a cockatiel or a 10-pound dog looks like. So yeah, pay attention to those treats. Those are that's the devil right there.
I know. And, we're not saying don't give your dog treats,
No,
right?
Of course
like
not.
There's low calorie treats, there's vegetables, some fruit. So, you can definitely do that. We were joking around that I swear everybody who's got their dog on a weight loss plan feeds green beans and canned pumpkin as part of their dog's diet. So they're like, oh no, we're trying to get them to lose weight. So we don't know where that came from, but green beans and pumpkin, there are other vegetables out there.
Yes, they exist.
There's other fruits out there that we can offer. So, and, seasonal, summertime, some nice crunchy cucumbers. They're hydrating. They're good.
And also, again, food is love, right? But at the same time, love is love. So exercise, petting, massaging, just interesting mental, breaks or activities.
Yeah.
These are things that we can give instead of treats.
Right.
So.
And then the type of food that you're feeding has a lot to do. So we told you how to, figure out the calories, where to look for the calories. All the packages should have the calorie count on there, but you have to pay attention because it'll be either kilocalories per container or per cup or per a certain amount of grams.
Right.
So you have to pay attention to that. And if you can't find it, you should be able to go online because all food is supposed to have the calorie count on there.
So we work with a police department with some of their police dogs. This particular dog I was working with was a bomb-sniffing dog. And the department changed the food that they were feeding. And I wasn't aware that they changed the food, but I was aware that the dog gained 5 pounds. And this is a bomb-sniffing, very, very active dog. And I told that to the handler, and the handler or the officer. And the officer was like, wow, I don't know. I'm feeding the same amount. So he was feeding the exact same cups per day, but not realizing that the calories in the food were a lot higher. So that's always a hard thing when people say, well, how much should I give my pet? Like, how many cups should I feed my dog?
Right.
I don't know.
And that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah.
So it's just a killer because we can't answer that question without knowing what the calories are on the back of the food. So find it on the website or find it on the back of the food, and it's there. You just have to look a little bit.
Yeah, and this calculation you're going to have to adjust, right? Like as they lose weight, if they lose weight too fast, like you're going to have to increase or decrease that by a percentage, whether it be 10, 15%. You have to make adjustments in the food until you find what works for them, and then any lifestyle changes, you're going to have to adjust the food. Hey, the dog just had surgery. Right. They're not as active. You have to keep that in mind, or they're doing a lot more. You have to keep that in mind. Right. So it's ever changing, and you have to monitor that.
Yeah. And I mean, again, go with your veterinarian too and talk about that, because obviously if the dog has a medical condition, that's really important to have to know when we're trying to adjust weight.
Yeah.
So,
and like you had said, exercise. We talked about how important exercise is in that previous study. So regular physical activity is key to burning calories, promoting weight loss. And you want to aim for daily exercise, like not the weekend warrior where they're on the couch all week and then you take them out for hours on the weekend, which there's a lot of great hiking around here. We know that a lot of people like to go hiking or go to the beach on the weekends. But we have to make sure that they're doing stuff throughout the week. It's not just nothing and then everything. Right.
So that's an important thing, right? So in humans, as far as health goes, a lot of you may have heard the number of 10,000 steps per day. That's a huge thing for your longevity. If you walk 10,000 steps a day, which I think is, I'm going to get wrong here. I think that's 5 miles. Maybe it's 4 miles. It's a long ways, actually. But they found that you can get I think 70 or 80% of the same benefits with 7,000 steps. And more research recently has been shown that even 4,000 steps makes a drastic impact. So walking is really important. Daily walking, like you said, is super important.
At a brisk pace. And I have to say, like, what does that say about society that the studies are like, okay, people aren't walking 10,000. What can we lower it to still get a benefit? Oh,
Exactly.
They're not doing that. So
how about 4,000? Can I make you a deal? 4,000.
Yeah. So I feel like it's just good for everybody.
Right. Exactly. And not to mention the mental stimulation, right? So we were talking about sniffaries the other day, where dogs are walking around sniffing everywhere, and they're picking up so much information on the sniffing. And so it's good for them. It's good for you to be outside. So walk with your dog. That'll help, the weight loss as well.
Yeah. I've had clients, when we're putting their dog on a weight loss plan and getting them out walking, they're losing weight and they're feeling better. And they're like, oh my gosh, like I have to walk my dog and, I feel great. I'm losing weight. I'm feeling, happier and stronger.
Right. Yeah. And so exercise is super, super important for all of us. Mental health, especially now with what's going on in the world and the stress of this upcoming election in the United States. I think I heard something the other day on the way to work that 70% of Americans are super stressed out about this election. Yeah. So, but stress reduction, just going outside and walking is a huge stress reducer. So,
yeah. And dogs feel our stress.
Oh my God.
So,
that's
if you're working on your stress and health, you're working on theirs too, which is really great.
For sure. We didn't mention types of food.
Yeah.
Really. Do you want to go into that? Because I feel this is a really nuanced discussion, of course, but in the human side too, they're finding that certain things are more satiating than other things, right? So a calorie is a calorie, but at the same time, there's more to a calorie than just a calorie. So, protein has been found to be very satiating, as is fat, compared to sugar.
Yeah.
So I feel that that's a really important factor in our health, but also the health of our dog. So higher protein, more nutrient-dense foods are going to keep your dogs more satiated without looking for snacks all the time and begging all the time. So I think that's super important.
Yeah, that's really important. I think the type of food you feed, whether it's fresh whole food, you still can overdo it. So you still have to keep in mind the calories and the exercise, but they, a little higher water content depending on the food, potentially more protein. If you're doing a prescription weight loss diet, there's a lot of nutritionists out there that will formulate home cooked diets and they'll fortify it so that it's weight loss, but you're not just cutting back the nutrition because you're cutting back the calories. So it'll be fortified. They'll really look at the protein levels, the fiber levels, and that way it can be like a healthy weight loss while maintaining lean body mass and doing it in a safe way.
Yeah, because that's the thing too. If we're cutting back calories, are we cutting back protein? And if we cut back protein, we're going to cut our muscle mass. So it's a vicious circle. But I do find in my practice, I find that dogs who are eating whole food nutrition, which usually means like a home-cooked food or a commercially bought food that is human grade, for example, like Nom Nom Now, Farmer's Dog, Just Food for Dogs. I find like dogs who are eating those kind of foods tend to have a better body composition. And I don't know if it's just the protein or it's the fact that there's none of the additives in there, or is it the carbs are lower, or is it because the dogs are more satiated because a cup of dry food looks so small.
It does.
But it's so nutrient dense, so it has more calories because it has no water versus like 75% water of these other foods. So I think that's something to look at, but at the same time you have to be able, whatever works for you and works for your pet is what's important.
Yeah. So. And the best food for your dog is the dog food that your dog does best on.
Right.
So,
exactly.
If something's not working, you can try and pivot and do something else. If certain ingredients aren't maintaining their weight or they just can't budge, let's try something else.
Right. And there's such a, like I said before, there's such a nuance. There's dogs that do amazing on a certain diet, and then there's other dogs who are just getting so thin on that same diet, even if you look for their, metabolic energy requirements, et cetera. So, I don't think we understand it fully, but I'm sure some of it has to do with their genetics and their microbiome and everything else like that, their enzymes that they have in their gut. But it is important. Some dogs need carbohydrates to be able to function and maintain weight. They just need them, especially those active dogs, the herding dogs, the fly ball dogs, just the dogs who go running a lot versus the couch potato dogs.
Yeah,
so.
And fat will play a big role in some of those too. Like the fat, they get a lot of energy from that too. And so I think just making sure that if your dog's not losing weight or they're losing weight too fast, talk to your veterinarian, seek out, a boarded nutritionist or a PhD in nutrition, because they can really help you hone in on what you need to do. And then it's just being consistent and maintaining that.
Right. Yeah, it's I know this is kind of vague, but we were talking about earlier too. So obviously it's getting on the scale at first so we need to know where we're starting from. And I would get on the scale once a week if you can, but also taking pictures. You were mentioning that earlier, right?
Yeah, so if you get baseline pictures from the side, from the top, it gives you an idea. Obviously you have to touch them for that body condition score, but it really does help you, because when you look at the body condition score chart, there's pictures.
Right.
There's, a description, but there's pictures. And then if you start, everybody has a phone. Every phone has a camera for the most part. So, and it'll even have the date on there. So you can get this is where we started. Take a picture of your dog, take a picture of the number on the scale. And then as you're going through this journey, keep doing that, right? It'll help you keep track.
Right. And so that's really, really important. And then the other thing about diet, again, variety is really important in diet. But also, if your dog's been eating dry food, for example, I don't even care. I'm just using dry food. I feel like I'm villainizing dry food right now. But if your dog's been eating dry food and now you want to change it to a whole food thing, a whole food diet, or add whole foods to your dog's diet, just go slow.
Yeah.
Don't go cold turkey, because unless you want to have diarrhea and vomiting, if you like that, then go ahead and go cold turkey.
Right.
But if you don't like that, then I would advise going slow. And you can most certainly add canned food to dry food. You can most certainly add home cooked to dry food. You can certainly add vegetables to dry food. So you can definitely do that and be confident that you're not messing up the nutrition, as long as we're doing it appropriately.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. So just go slow. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. Remember, 1% per week, 3 to 5% per month is what we're looking at. So.
Yeah, so you have to be patient with, the process. You have to be consistent. One of the things that we find is that you'll start really strong. And then over time, you start tweaking things like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So just be as consistent as possible, because it's human nature to seek variety and to do different things. But also, if your dog isn't losing weight, just looking at everything again, starting over, recalculating.
Right.
And just, it's okay to start over.
Yeah. Yeah, what Dr. Varco was talking about earlier is called nutritional drift. We start with a good diet and we have this one set thing we're doing, and the next thing you're like, well, I don't want to feed this. I'm going to add this. And, that add might be more calories. It might be less calories. So we just have to pay attention to what we're doing. And as Gabby said earlier, there are more vegetables in the world than pumpkin and sweet potato and green beans.
Yeah.
Broccoli, carrots, zucchini. We were talking about cucumbers and celery. Some dogs love all those things.
Yeah. And, you can incorporate some fruits too. Like, it's summertime, so a little bit of watermelon can be really good. They love it. There's a lot of water in it. And it's a nice little treat. Yeah. So there's a lot that you can do if you feel like you want to treat your dog. And you're used to okay, every time I leave the house, they're used to getting a treat. That's a tradition we have. Or every time I clip their nails, they get a treat. Of course, do that. Right. But maybe instead of reaching for the milk bone, we're doing, a piece of broccoli or a little piece of watermelon or something like that.
And even if you give treats, if you, when I leave the house for long periods of time, I will put my dogs in a crate, or at least two of them, because they were destructive. So they go into their crates and they're fine. They love going into their crates. It's their safe spot. But they don't care if I give them a giant treat or a small treat. They will go into their crates running and happy for a 1.5 calorie Charlie Bear.
Yes.
They do not care.
They
so
don't.
you do not need to give them. I mean, I will typically break down raw hides or liver treats or whatever into very small portions, and they love it. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I do have to admit, like, we're all human, and I have a Labrador who at times gets overtreated. I'm not going to be hypocritical here. So yeah, sometimes I just, we do have to think about what we're giving them and giving them something because they expect it. My dog absolutely expects it and tells me he expects it. So he doesn't care what I give him. I give him a piece of carrot. He's happy.
Yeah, he don't care.
Yeah. He just wants something.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, again, not rocket science, but we got to start from where we got to start from knowledge. We got to start with what we know. How many calories are we supposed to give? Start with what's the weight of my dog? What's my BCS of my dog? What do the pictures look like? Let's calculate these calories.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what we're feeding them. Let's aim for a 1% weight loss per week. Look at exercise.
Yeah, exercise. And then what does this all mean, right? We implement these weight loss strategies. We're implementing these healthy lifestyle choices. We're going to really aim for achieving and maintaining healthy weight, which leads to happier, healthier, and longer life, which is why we're doing this.
Right.
This is the why.
Yeah.
We want them to be healthy, happy, and to live a long time.
Right. Yeah, health span too, not just lifespan. Live a long time and be healthy the whole way through. So
yeah,
we all know the dog who is the 14-year-old dog who looks like he's 102, and the 14-year-old dog who looks like he's 10 because of activity and diet and everything. So so that's our goal is for maintaining health span and lifespan.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning in to Ageless Pet. We'll catch you next time with more tips and insights to keep your pets thriving.
Thank you.